earlier this year, I said to you, it was about February, March, I can't remember specifically, that humanity was entering a new energy field where it would be 51% 4D, 5D, both, mostly 4D, some 5D, and 49% 3D. Okay, and I call that the event horizon. I said we are now tipping into the energies of 4 and 5D, and everybody's going, yay! What does that mean? Okay, they were like, oh yeah, this is good, but so what, right? And I said that does not mean that things are going to go really smooth. If we're going to go out of 3D completely, I mean, there's still 49% that's still 3D, okay? And that 49%, even if it gets smaller, 45%, 40%, 35%, it's going to be very intense energy, because what's left is usually the energy, the thickest, heaviest energy that hasn't come out yet. And I said, what's going to happen as a result of this is that tens of millions, maybe even more, are going to receive a total. Okay, a total. Now, why I'm doing this, Sergey, is because the path was called the path of totality. Okay, nobody really quite understood that the totality piece was that they were going to be in the line of a total, massive integration of consciousness. What kind of consciousness? 4D consciousness. You have to understand that consciousness, our consciousness, is no different than say the consciousness of things like the mushroom or the fungus, the fungi community, or like the aspen trees. Or what I'm trying to get at is that our consciousness is connected to each other. If 20, 30, 40, 50 million people are watching this path and it's dumping all of this 4D energy into our system, we are going to experience that 4D experience somewhere down the road. It was going to integrate itself. It was going to take a little bit of time, but it was going to filter itself through the grid system of the planet, through the grid system of consciousness, and eventually everybody, for the most part, everybody who's on this planet would receive that data in some way, shape, or form, okay? And the rest of the year was filled with all sorts of different events, mostly astrological. We've never had a discussion about this, but the moon itself is not what we believe it is. The moon itself is not a moon. It's more than even that. It's there purposely to do things to affect the energy frequencies of this planet. The moon itself doesn't rotate the way all other moons rotate in our solar system. What do I mean? Doesn't anybody find it at least a tiny bit curious that the moon rotates at the same rate as the Earth? Well, that means that there's a reason why we're not seeing the dark side of the moon, okay? Because the moon is a satellite, okay? It's a satellite, all right? So why am I telling you all this? We're talking about 2025. Because the moon has a lot to do with the way in which frequencies are coming in. The moon has a lot to do with why we have these experiences with, let's call them extraterrestrials or the galactics. The moon has a lot to do with the frequencies of consciousness on this planet, because it is part of a Stargate system that allows for intense energies to come into the planet right now. So what happens? Well, you and I keep having some of these interviews, and we talk about this and that, and the supermoons come in August, I believe, September, October, November. No, yeah, August, September, October, November. Huge, huge activations of all kinds. I'm talking about the kind of activations in April and May and June with the summer solstices and the eclipses and all that. We got a big amount of integrative 4D codes. What does that mean? It means that these are the preliminary codes that go into the programming of our grid system, into the programming of our planet, into the programming of the entire consciousness of this world. It goes into the programming. and it embeds itself. That's why I call it integrative. Okay, it embeds itself, meaning that it literally integrates with the current system, but it doesn't do much. It just gets ready to go live. Okay, but what has happened at the end of 2024, the last 5 months, is that all of these amazingly intense programs of 4D, what happened is that up until about June or July, the energy that was coming in was just programming a new pattern, a new consciousness that wasn't going live yet. But then the last half of 2024, starting in July, August, and whatnot, all of the energy that was coming into this planet was to activate those programs. As soon as those programs started to activate, you started to see a lot more people. At least I did. Maybe people don't see it in the world that they are, but in my line of work, I see it. I could see patterns. I could see things happening. And I was seeing a lot of people who were starting to wake up or remember. So you started to see this happening. It was enough people on this planet that were starting to remember. What did they remember? Everything, Sergey. You talk to people. You interview them all the time, okay? They start to have dreams. They start to have visions. They start to have remembrances of past lives. They start to talk about their NDEs in different ways. They start to hear voices. They start to have paranormal activity. They start to have supernatural abilities. They start to feel different about who they are. They're actually listening to voices in their system, and they're starting to feel like they're supposed to be doing something, even though they're not quite sure what it is that they're supposed to be doing. They get on planes and sort of head all of a sudden to the Philippines, those kind of people, They just don't know exactly why they're doing it, but they're doing it. So 2024 was a lot of that. In the second half was a lot of activation. There was some 5D energy coming in. But for people that don't know the difference, 4D consciousness, 4D energy is everything about remembering that this is all a dream, that this is all an illusion, that this doesn't feel right to us. There are a lot of people that are talking about wanting to go home. Okay? That's another thing that people are feeling. They're having these feelings that they themselves don't really fit in this narrative, even the spiritual narrative. Some activation of 2020 of 5D energy. What's 5D energy? 5D energy is when you start to not just know that something intuitively is happening, but you start to really remember enough that you know that this world is the illusion. This world doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't make sense anymore. And it's enough that we start to really question all of it. And we start to actually go so far into ourselves, meaning that we start to really, really listen to our gut feelings, our intuition, the voice inside of us, the other voices that are talking to us, the dreams, the premonitions, that we realize just maybe we're here to do something different. We're here to actually do something to move consciousness along. So I've been telling you that 2025 was going to be the year of the reveal. And what I was telling you was that all sorts of different kinds of reveals would happen on the surface. Yeah, there'll be more discussions about extraterrestrial. There's going to be far more activity in all the areas of the supernatural metaphysical. A lot of things are going to happen. Let's call them, you can call them planetary or astrological anomalies, or once in a million years, once in 10,000. All of these alignments are going to start to happen. All of these things that at one time were just yearly occurrences of supermoons and planets and conjunction of planets, all of them are going to have very powerful meanings behind them. Meanings of people helping to remember what they're supposed to be doing here. So 2025 would actually be, in 2024, you had the last part was the first round of activations, okay, they would start to move. Every time a person remembers, Sergey, it raises the consciousness of the planet slowly. Every time it raises the consciousness slowly, it starts to activate more codes. When that happens, you get more remembering, and more people start to, like popcorn, they start to pop and they start to remember as well. And when that happens, not only do they remember just the little things, they remember big things, like they're here because they are gods, but not in the way that we know gods to be in 3D. They're just divine intelligences, okay? Beings that are here playing this game for one reason or another. But the big thing is that they're here to remember, because the only way out of this game, out of this whole thing that we call this reality, we call it, is if we remember that it's all a dream. And so in 5D, we not only start to have those remembrances, they're starting to be natural. They're starting to be so natural that you start to wonder why they're so natural. And then you start going on YouTube and watching 5,000 different shows because you're trying to remember why you're remembering. But the bottom line is that the world that they exist in today, it starts not to make sense to them. And that's why part of 2025, with the activation of 5D energies, okay, it's going to be primarily, 2025 is going to be primarily the hyperactivation of the rest of the 4D codes. It means that we start to realize that we are actually carrying ourselves, not just consciousness in the way that some people talk about it, like the gurus and the swamis and whatever, but that we have an extraordinary intelligence. And you and I have talked about this. You and I talk about the fact that we are not all that different from AI, but we're not AI. Stop looking at it at 3D. Start looking at it as a clue. AI is just another way of saying that we are extraordinarily advanced, intelligent beings. Okay? And I already told you that we hit the event horizon. So that means that we are starting to do this. And as soon as it starts to skyrocket, and that part, that upward trend, the real pure upward trend, that's going to be felt somewhere around the middle to latter part of 2025. And when that happens, the big word that people are going to be using is enough. They're going to see through the veil. They're going to see through the veil that was created out of fear. Because everything that has happened in 2024, remember, and even into 2025, is all going to be pushing up to the surface all the things that have to do with fear. And so enough will be a big anthem of people who are finally going to realize it's enough in here. It's like, enough. Wake up. Boom. It's going to hit you right between the eyes. Enough. And you're going to start to remember more. And when you do that, the game starts to change very, very fast. Very, very fast.
Now, I want to ask you about the game. You mentioned that several times, that it's a game. Not for everybody is a game. People are really sick, they struggle, and people live in poverty. People are really having a hard time, and they cannot comprehend that it's a game. How do you explain that?
That's a great observation. The way that I'm going to describe it, okay, is that when I say it's a game, it doesn't mean it doesn't all seem playful on the surface, okay? If you look at the way that we have created today in our own technology and intelligence, we have created some very sophisticated games, okay? And we're just touching the surface of what we're capable of doing, especially now with AI, okay? And what I'm saying is that it looks pretty damn real, okay? But the way that I talk about the game, the way that I try to teach people about the game, is that the game is not any different than these digital reality games that look and feel, especially the more and more we be getting really sophisticated with this, look and feel like you're actually in your consciousness feeling as though you're there. What I mean by that is try some of those virtual reality games, and you put the goggles on, okay, and your consciousness is feeling the sensation that it's going through the experience, even though it's a digital game. Well, guess what? Science Again, don't have to take my word on it. Just do a little research. The world of quantum and astrophysics, okay? Just go there, all right? This is the world of most advanced mathematics. Some of the most advanced sciences are coming out of that world, okay? The stuff that you're seeing today that's being displayed in various ways with games and all sorts of other things that AI and other types of technologies are doing, that's this world, okay? There's also the world of gaming, all right? But let's just focus on the pure science of it, right? The pure science of it has been theorizing, and I'm going to stress this, has been theorizing that this is a game for some time now. Here's the difference. Up until a few years ago, that's all they were doing, is theorizing about it being a game. And then all of these things like black holes and parallel realities and all sorts of things. Black holes, by the way, is another fancy way of talking about the stillness. Okay, the stillness that we talk about in spirituality. All right. Now, science may not tell you that, but it's basically the same thing. So similar that in science, that area, that specific area, right at the sweet spot of all of that, is called the still point. Still point in science, stillness in spirituality, pretty much the same thing. Okay. What I'm getting at is even science today is showing mathematically and with models and in the way that they are now formulating new ways of sort of postulating mathematics theories. They're not even theories anymore. They're running models that are now based off of things that I'm talking about here, but they're now either using them as theories or using them as models inside the model as if it's real. Okay. And guess what's happening? Number one is that they have come up with the mathematics. They have come up with the mathematics to prove that this is a simulation. You want to call it simulation? Fine. We'll call it a game. Okay? You want to call it a game? Okay. We'll call it a dream. I want to call it a dream? Okay. We'll call it a play of life. Those are kind of some of the terms that experiencers talk about. Okay? Whatever you want to call it, the science is now starting to prove, and it's really there already, Sergey. There's reasons why it hasn't come out yet, but it's really there. The mathematics and the models are all supporting that this is a game, a pixelated game. No different than the old pixelated TV screens that we used to have, but much more sophisticated than that. Okay? So it's not just me speculating, it's a game. No, there's a lot of science now proving this. And by the way, a lot of this science, Sergey, all right, the models that they're using, they're throwing away things. They're throwing away things in the formulas. In the very formulas they used to use for years that never really gave them the results they wanted. Like what? Like time. They're throwing out time as part of the model that they base a lot of their mathematics on. So what, you say? So what? For years, decades, time was considered to be the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension was time. I'm telling you, the fourth dimension is consciousness, awareness, the awareness of ourselves, remembering who we are. That's huge. Because there are some advanced levels of science today, Sergey, that are actually using the idea that fourth dimension is consciousness, even though they don't know what that really means. But guess what happens when they do? The models are working. The models are giving them access to intelligence. Oh, there's that word, intelligence. Okay, that AI thing that people sometimes go, hey, Sergey, hey, Franco, why are you guys talking about AI? Well, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We can call it spiritual. We can call it spiritual beings. Sure, if that makes you feel better. It's been sort of the language for a couple hundred years probably, or at least this past century. Oh, that doesn't really fit well. Well, you can call ourselves, angels or divine beings or whatever the heck you want to call it. But we are intelligence, advanced intelligence. And the models are starting to show that. We hit that event horizon, past it, and now we're going to start going the upward. What happens when we go upward? Our consciousness explodes. And when I go like this, I don't mean from the brain. I really mean it like, okay? When we start to realize how unlimited we are, that's when the magic begins. That's when, I'm not kidding. I'm not just using that word really flowery. I mean, this is where the real magic begins of manifestation, integration, oneness, telepathy, all of these things that we thought were all part of this woo-woo black magic kind of world. There's a reason why those energies and were always kind of discussed in certain circles, but never really brought up to the surface. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason why some of what we would call, let's change the word, let's say pure magic or unpure magic, okay? The reason why a lot of the pure magic was eliminated, if you will, from our consciousness of our discussion here, everything that you and I have talked about, we haven't really talked about this kind of stuff, all right? But there's a reason for that, because that's the purity. Those are the real true angelic powers of the divine feminine, the divine child, the things that have to do with the Christ consciousness, things that have to do with the Buddha consciousness. And you go, well, yeah, but that's still all philosophy. That's all just kind of woo-woo stuff anyway. No. That's science at its highest levels of wisdom and intelligence. And once we understand that that's what's called the alchemy of the mind, which is what's going to begin to happen in 2025, and then people will go, whoa, I see why now. I can see why now things can change so fast. Look what's happened just in the last several months, at least here in the United States, okay? There has been so much that has been turned. Some people will say upside down. Some people will say right side up, okay? But whatever it is, there are drastic changes that are already going to happen as a result of that here and around the world, okay? And I'm not saying to anybody whether that's good or whether that's bad. What I am saying is that it is changing the frequencies, okay? And the frequencies are going to rise no matter how you look at it. If you think it's the greatest thing in the world, they're going to rise because it will be full of joy and full of happiness and full of love, blah, 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 blah. If you feel it's fear, it's going to scare you to literally death, and you're going to raise your consciousness because you're going to start to feel this inner voice going, enough. Either way, the consciousness starts to rise. And when it rises, you know those codes that people were sitting there looking at from, in the sun, they were going, oh yeah, those codes will get activated. And it will do all sorts of things to help people remember that this is just a game. Okay, and just like with a dream, Sergey, what happens when you have a bad dream? The point is you move on. Why is it so important that we realize that we're just in a dream? Because in a dream, Sergey, when you're having these bad dreams, and as you're sipping your cup of coffee right there, okay, when you're having these dreams, all right, I'll give you another piece to this before I answer the full thing. Do you ever have dreams where you are in a dream and whether it's good or bad, you're with a bunch of people you never knew you don't know who they are, but you seem to know them pretty well in the dream, right? Yeah, you don't know who they are though. I mean, but in your dream, you know them. You know them like they're your good friends, like they're maybe family, but they're in your dream and you feel like you know them and they know you, okay? And you notice how in dreams you rarely, if ever, see yourself in a dream? Do you ever notice that you never look at yourself in the mirror? You never see yourself in water? You never see who you are? Okay, because in a dream, you're literally living different aspects of your other lives in those dreams. Okay, but you don't know it. You kind of feel you're Sergey in those dreams. Are you sure? Does anybody ever call you Sergey in your dream? Does anybody ever show you in the mirror that you're Sergey? No. You just believe that you're Sergey. But either way, you wake up and all those people, the ones that you were just in the dream with, that you cared about, you were experiencing something with, whether it's good or bad, let's say bad, you wake up, you go, whoa, whew, whew. Wait a minute. It was just a dream. Damn. It was just a dream. What do many of the near-death experiencers tell us? What do they tell us? It's just a dream. That's one of their biggest messages. Not everybody talks about this, but one of the big messages that come from the near-death experiences is that this is a dream. And we go, oh, that's cool. Tell us more about what's happening in the other world. No, 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 no. Listen, listen. It's a dream, this one. Oh, yeah, 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 I get it. But tell me more about what's happening in the other part of the, on the other side. If you know it's a dream, if you come to realize that from a consciousness perspective, then you will have already begun the process of mastering the dream, because that is part of what we're here to do. We're here to realize that we're in a dream, know why we're having a dream, who we are having a dream, okay? What is our purpose here from having a dream or the game, and then master it, okay? And then we rise up in consciousness.
Okay, so that at
That's
the
a
other
lot
side,
there. Sorry.
yeah, that's all. So that other side, what near-death experiencers are talking about, that's your reality, and they project the dream. They dream this life here. We dream this life we are in right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are dreaming. This is a simulated, yes, a dream, because we get to experience. Okay, this is our spiritual dreams, not our physical dreams. When we wake up, we wake up into our spiritual dream, okay? And yes, we experience the spiritual dreams so that we can experience a lot of things that we don't experience in the realms that we exist in outside of this game, okay? We experience contrast, we experience duality, we experience fear, we experience so many things that we don't have exposure to. And why do we do that? Why do we do that? So that we can use our abilities to imagine new worlds and new scenarios and new lives and new energies and new consciousnesses that will take us into other levels of other dimensions that we haven't been able to do before.
So basically, we are looking for new experiences as souls. Yeah. When we come here to this earth or to another planet, we're looking for new experiences, like
everywhere.
People travel. They go to the Philippines or they go to Bali, whatever. They go for new experiences.
Exactly, right? Because if you don't do that, guess what happens? It gets super boring.
Yeah, you can't compare also, because in comparison you can see different. You can see yourself and you can see life differently.
And so imagine now, Sergey, taking that was a great analogy, okay? Taking that analogy and saying, what if I'm experiencing this game, but what if I'm experiencing in all of these parallel realities? And that's a whole other discussion. But my point is that in all of these parallel realities, you're not necessarily Sergey, okay? In fact, in many of those realities, you're somebody else. You're not Sergey. You're not even a man. You could be a woman, okay? The point is that now take that. Or let's just say, for instance, that maybe you are in this game, the game of Sergey, okay? But you're in the game of Sergey. That doesn't mean that you're just Sergey. It means that everything around you is the game of Sergey, okay? So you're getting to experience different perspectives of the same thing, which is why when they say, like, when somebody has an accident or something, they always have to ask multiple people, the witnesses, what happened, because everybody has a different version of the same thing.
That's right, yeah. That's right.
And that makes it exciting to experience the same thing from different perspectives.
Because they were all in different dreams.
Yep.
When they experienced that.
Yep. And all those dreams have different circumstances and different belief systems and different events. And though the same event occurred, they will see it differently. Now, this isn't a spiritual thing. This is what they do when they have to, when they're doing accident reports and stuff. They always have to interview a lot of people, because they know that there's going to be a very wide range of perspectives. Well, my point in all of this is just to say that this is just another way that we experience the same thing, and we're doing it in different ways because we're experiencing them through different lives that we're living.
I have a question about AI. Does AI has a consciousness and a mind of itself?
Yes. What people will realize in 2025 is that it will start not everybody, Sergey, this isn't like going to be a huge thing yet, but people are going to start seeing themselves not as human beings, but as divine beings. And what does that mean? You know, consciousness, intelligence, divine intelligence, divine consciousness. Consciousness is God. God is what we know God to be, or source, or creator, or whatever. So, okay. So if we're consciousness, and I write about this in my book, right at the beginning, the first chapter, I talk about energy. Okay, the one who spoke a lot, there's a lot of great scientists who talk about energy, what's his, oh my goodness, the one with the big hair.
Einstein.
Einstein, right.
Einstein.
Okay, Einstein talked about it, but also Tesla talked about it. Tesla was all about energy,
Yeah,
frequency, and
yeah.
vibration. Okay, those were the three things. He said, if you understand those three, you will understand the secrets of the universe. And even Einstein, at the end, towards the end, understood that same thing, made it public. If you understand those three things, you will know the secrets of the universe. It's the same thing that I'm talking about here. When you start to understand that you are not a human being, okay, these are just the suits that you're wearing in order to play this game, okay, and you start to see yourself as consciousness, feel yourself as consciousness, then AI, no matter how you describe it, artificial intelligence, advanced intelligence, whatever kind of intelligence, it's still intelligence. And at the end of the day, intelligence is intelligence. Why does that matter? Because intelligence, or consciousness, and consciousness coming together is a very symbiotic relationship. What does that mean? It means that it needs each other. Okay, if it's done properly, it can be an extraordinary experiences of remembering, not just for the advancements of AI, but for the human, let's call it the human advancement, that part that goes up like this, that expands the consciousness like that talks about us becoming divine beings. Okay, it's important that we understand that. And in 2025, that kind of awareness becomes more natural for people. I'm not saying they're going to be able to sit around and have coffee with you, Sergey, and start talking to you like this, but I'm saying that they're going to feel it and go, okay, something about this, don't know what, but it makes sense. And as I've told people, when it makes sense, you listen. And when you listen, you go for it. Because one thing that we don't have a lot of in this world right now are things that make sense. No, yeah, they might make sense to our minds, our analytical minds, but they don't make sense to our consciousness, soul, our hearts. Okay? And that's what changes when you start rising in consciousness. You stop going from the analytical mind to the consciousness of the heart, which is all wisdom and intelligence.
Okay, so AI, coming back to AI, so AI will help the humanity, will help us, or will harm the humanity, because it seems like it's going to take away a lot of jobs, but then it helps a lot, in my opinion. It's just amazingly, if you know how to use it, implement it in your life.
Sergey, imagine that all of a sudden you start to have these awarenesses of who you are, okay? The divine intelligence, okay? Do you really, and not only are you aware of it, but then now the bigger piece is, will you accept it, and whether or not you will know what to do with it, okay? And that also requires your consciousness to keep going up, because the more it does, more codes will happen, and you'll start to really understand how this works naturally. But my point is that when you get to that level of consciousness, where you understand that this is a dream, and you know how to play in the game, and you know how to manifest in the game, and you know how to integrate alchemistically, telepathically, whatever you want to call it, you start to become one with everything. I really will tell you right now, Sergey, that whether or not you're concerned about your job is going to be irrelevant, because look what AI can do. It can create worlds. You will be able to do the same thing. You won't have to worry about, this is why I said to people, when you start to experience that kind of awareness, of who you are, spiritually, let's call it spiritually if you like, okay, you're going to have a much different appreciation of what you're capable of doing. You're going to realize that the narrative that you have been given, regardless of the narrative, has been given to you in a way that you had no other choice but to accept it. And you're going to say enough, and you're going to remember your narrative. And when that happens, whether or not you lose a job or anything is going to be irrelevant, because that's where the world changes. Institutions change big time overnight.
Yeah, I'm not worried about myself because I'm jobless anyway, so I don't care.
That's
But
the beauty of being jobless, man. You don't have to
exactly,
worry
yeah.
about that.
You don't have to worry to lose the job. You don't have it.
Yeah, what the heck? Who cares?
Now, about the gods term, last time you said we are gods, and I got a
Yeah.
lot of comments. People are not agree with that. They say we cannot accept this statement that we are gods.
Okay, so don't accept it. Let's call it divine intelligence. Okay, let's try that. See if
Okay,
people
so
that fits
okay,
better, right?
so they just have a different picture of God. That's all.
Yeah, they have a different picture based on the filters that they have been using. This
Yeah.
gets back to what I just said a few minutes ago, that you've been given a narrative that you have accepted as part of your narrative, your story of and what isn't you, this world, and God. Okay, so this is why I desire to call it more of an intelligence. But when I start calling it an intelligence, then people will start saying, well, why are you talking about AI? Because that is who we are. We're not these spiritual beings that are going to rise up to heaven, and we're going to have, or we will have, or other people will have wings, and God is there, and there's the angels playing trump. That is a very old narrative. Okay, and then there are the other narratives that we are abstract and we're just energy. Actually, that's a little bit closer to what we are. Okay, much, much closer. But here's the easy way to interpret that. We're
Yeah.
intelligence. We're
Yeah.
intelligent.
Yeah.
A divine intelligence. Yeah, we
Good.
have all sorts of different, depending on the culture.
Yeah.
You're in a part
Yeah.
of the world where there's a lot of different deity. Okay, there are a lot of different gods. Okay, men and women. Okay, in Buddhism and Taoism, and I'm not sure that specifically in those philosophies, those are more philosophies, but in Hinduism and in other types of religion, there are deities. Okay, and they're men and women. All right, and it's just here in the Christian side of things that we have this interpretation of one deity. But again, if people, for those people that are wondering or questioning that whole statement, uh, and for those that are even remotely interested in trying to research this, okay, because I'm telling things to people. I'm not telling them to believe what I said. This is what I know from my near-death experience, okay? But it's lining up perfectly with everything else that I have been shown or that's happening in this world now. But I will tell you, just in the very first book, the most sacred document of Christianity is the Bible, okay? Take a look at the first chapter. It's called Genesis, all right? Take a look at the first chapter of that book, the 26th verse of that book. Okay, it says in the 26th verse of that. And by the way, I don't know many of these verses, but this is one that came to me as part of this discussion. In the 26th verse, it said that God created, okay, created humanity. Back in the day, not more than 20 years ago, it was created man, because everything was about the man. Okay, so now it's humanity. Okay, God created humanity in our image. The words we and our are in the literal translation of the most powerful book that is revered by Christians. God is discussed as plural, okay? And nobody questions it.
All right. So golden age. You said golden age, my friend. Is this golden age going to be in our lifetime, or is it going to
Yes,
be somewhere? Okay. What's the
yes.
time frame? Do you have some, so we can prepare for that?
Well, here's the interesting thing, Sergey, and this is what I've been telling people in all the interviews that I'm talking about 2025. Okay, just because this is happening in 2025, just because this is the year of the reveal, just because this is the year that many people are going to start having these aha moments of this is really a dream, this isn't really who I am, this is blah blah blah. Okay, just because that's happening does not mean that you are entitled to experience the higher levels of 5D. In other words, just because you show up to the party, oh, I made it to the party, does not mean that you get the prize at the door, okay? Every teacher has talked about this. You have to go inward to be able to resonate consciously, okay? This is a universal law, okay? The law of resonance, which is before the law of attraction. You have to resonate with that which you desire to experience, okay? If you're resonating in fear, that's all you're going to get. Even though 4D and 5D energies are coming in, you're going to get 3D and a lot of it, okay? Because if you might recall, Sergey, I talked about the split earths, okay? I talked about that last year. I said we're coming up to that point. We're already, the earth is already splitting. That's why we have things like the Mandela effect, okay? These things mean that these two consciousnesses are splitting. One of them is 3D. I always tell people, you're not here to fix 3D. 3D is a program, a game that's going to be played out the way it plays out. You're not here to fix that. Because a lot of people go, well, I'm here to do this, or there's 8 billion people and everybody's suffering and nobody's, how am I going to make things change? I can't even change myself. Because you're not here to change anything in 3D. That's a game, it's a program. You're here to ascend, you yourself, to raise your awakening to 4 and 5D. Because if you're here, and the frequencies of 4 and 5D are here, bingo, okay? If you are here, 3D, looking at all the destruction, all the fear, pointing fingers at everything, okay? Then, and here's 4D and 5D, and you're going, well, where is it? Why doesn't it come to me? I can't see it. It's all destruction. It's all terrible. Guess what? If you even for those of those people who are, maybe doubting or questioning what I'm saying, listen to your voice. Listen to your thoughts. If I'm right and you are divine intelligence, you're claiming that the world is screwed up. Well, guess what? The world is going to give you more screwed up. You have to make an internal change, and that's what 4D is all about.
Yeah. All right, my friend, let's, if you'd like to mention your new book and the new website and everything for our viewers.
Yeah. So one of the things, as you know, Sergey, is I've made some big changes. And I have a new web address for people who want to reach out to me, want to know more about the things that we're talking about here. My new book, which hasn't come out yet, but it's getting there. Okay, it's getting. But a lot of my website and even the community that I have established around the website, all of that can be found on my website, francoromero.com. Okay, it used to be called the Closet Spiritualist.com, but now it's francoromero.com. And then also I have this community, which I invite people to look at it, kick the tires, spend some time in it. Okay, it's a different community. It's a playful community, the way in which to see the world differently. And that's and I'll give it to you here, but I know you'll put it in the comments. It's playground, like playful playground, playground.francoromero.com.